10 things. Every one of them was ordinary knowledge in this country 2 lifetimes ago. Not secret, not mystical. Ordinary. A 10-year-old knew 4 of them and thought nothing of it. So how does something every child could do become something almost nobody can? A few things happened, and none of them is a villain. The store showed up, and it was easier, and I cannot blame a tired woman for buying soap instead of digging a root. The old ones taught by mouth, one voice into one pair of ears, and when children were sent away to schools far from home and the old languages went quiet, some of those chains broke, and there was never a dollar in it. Nobody can patent a plant that grows free in a ditch, so nobody ever spent a penny teaching you what is in your backyard. It did not go wrong, it went quiet, but every one of these 10 still works today, exactly the way it did 1,000 years ago, and it works when nothing on the shelf does. Stay with me to the end, because number 10 is a food our people made that kept for years in a leather bag with no ice, no jar, and no salt. Meat, years. And the reason is not what anybody guesses. There are only 2 things that spoil food, and the old ones found one recipe that kills both at once. That one is worth the whole video. I am Wes Kingfisher. I am 64 years old. I am of Cherokee heritage, and my grandmother Ada raised me in the hills of eastern Oklahoma, on the same few acres where I still live today. She gave me the plants in the kitchen. My grandfather and my uncles gave me the woods, and 40 years on the powwow trail and at gatherings across Indian country gave me the rest, from the northern plains down to the desert southwest. Everything on this list I have done with my own 2 hands, most of it more times than I could count. The old ones never wrote any of it down, so listen close. 2 generations back, none of this was survival knowledge. It was Tuesday. It was a chore a child got handed so the grown people could do something harder. Now let me say something about that word collapse, because I know it is sitting up there in the title. I am not a doomsday man. I do not sit up at night waiting for the world to end, and I am not going to sell you fear, because fear is cheap, and this channel is not. But I have watched the power stay off in these hills for 9 days in an ice storm, with every road closed by trees. My grandmother lived through years when the shelf simply did not have it, and every one of you watching has been through a hurricane, a blizzard, a flood, a layoff, or a month that ran longer than the money did. You do not need the world to end. You just need one bad week. And when a bad week finds you, the only thing worth anything at all is what you already know how to do with your hands. Knowledge does not need batteries. It does not burn. It does not spoil. It cannot be stolen out of your truck, and it weighs nothing. Folks say worth gold, and they are underselling it, because gold you can lose. And one of these 10 is the reason people used to be able to walk away from a camp in October and eat well in February. Keep that in the back of your mind. Now, everything on this list came from somewhere, and I finally sat down and wrote all of it out. It is called The Native American Way. 101 remedies, skills, and recipes that kept my people alive for 10,000 years. Ada's plant knowledge in her kitchen and the skills the elders of Indian country handed me around 1,000 fires, put down plain and in order so a person can go do them. The backyard plants, the teas and the salves, the wild foods and when to gather them, fire and water and shelter, and how to put a whole winter of food up. Right now it is $17, marked down from $47. $17 for the way an entire people stayed alive on this land. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you're watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time, there is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. All right, number 1, and I am putting it first, because it is the one that actually gets people. Water. In nearly every bad week I have ever seen or heard about, The trouble was not that there was no water. There was a creek right there. The trouble was what came out of that creek and what it did to a person about 2 days later. And a grown man who cannot keep anything down is a man who is finished for the week. So here's the old way to get better water out of a muddy creek or a stock pond, and it is called a seep well. Walk back away from the edge of the water, 10 to 15 feet back up on the bank. Dig a hole about 2 feet across. Keep digging until water starts seeping into the bottom of it on its own. That first fill will come in muddy. Bail it out and throw it away. Let it fill again. The second fill comes in noticeably clear, and by the third one, you're looking at water you would not be ashamed of. What is happening is that the ground between your hole and the creek is straining that water for you. All that soil is catching the silt and a good share of the muck, and only the water is getting through. Now here's the part I need you to hear, because this is where good people get themselves in trouble. Clear is not clean. What makes you sick in water is alive, and it is far too small for your eyes to find. It does not tint the water. It does not smell. You can pour water through sand, through charcoal, through a folded shirt, through the finest seep well you ever dug, and end up with something that looks like it came from a store and will still put you flat on your back for a week. Filtering takes out what you can see. Heat takes out what you cannot, so you boil it. Bring it to a rolling boil and hold it there for 1 full minute, 1 minute. And if you are up high, above about 6,500 feet, make it 3 minutes, because water boils cooler up there. The old ones had a filter better than anything I just described, and it was the hillside itself. They knew what was above the water they drank. They took it from a spring at the head of the draw, up above the animals in the fields, where nothing had gotten to it yet. If you can find a spring coming straight out of a rock face, take your water there and be grateful. And there are 2 places you do not take water from, no matter how pretty it looks. Do not take it below a beaver pond, because that is where a nasty little parasite lives that will have you sick for weeks. And do not take it downstream of a pasture, a feedlot, or something dead. The way you find out is that you walk uphill and look, in 10 minutes of walking uphill before you fill a jug is the cheapest insurance in the woods. My grandfather made me do it every single time, standing there with his arms folded while I did it. Number 2, making a fire live all night so you never have to start one. Nobody in an old camp lit a fire every morning. Starting fire is expensive. It costs time, it costs tinder, and in a wet week, it can cost you everything you have got. So our people did not start fires. They kept them. Here is how you bank a fire. And take your time with this. At the end of the evening, rake all your coals into one tight pile in the middle of the hearth. Tight. Do not leave them spread out, because spread out they burn up and die. Now take the fine gray ash from around the edges of your hearth and cover that pile of coals with 2 to 3 inches of it. 2 to 3 inches. Ash, not dirt, because dirt packs down and smothers. Then walk away and go to sleep. What that ash is doing is the same trick as the grass in a roof. It is full of tiny pockets of still air, so it insulates beautifully, and it holds just enough air off those coals to starve them down to a slow smolder without ever putting them out. In the morning, you take a stick and scrape the ash off the top of that pile, and there will be live orange coals sitting there waiting for you. Lay your fine tinder right on them, then blow, and blow gentle and low and steady. Do not blast at it. A hard breath scatters coals and puts out more fires than it lights. And keep your tinder dry the way the old ones did, which is on your body. A small pouch of fine dry stuff, cattail fluff, cedar bark rubbed soft between your palms, birch bark if you are up north, carried inside your shirt where your own heat keeps it dry no matter what the weather's doing. A man with dry tinder and live coals is never really cold. A man with wet tinder and a dead hearth has a very long night ahead of him. One warning, and I mean it, you bank a fire outdoors, in an open hearth, never in a closed shelter with the vent shut down, because a smoldering fire in a tight space makes carbon monoxide, and that has no smell, and it kills people in their sleep every single winter in this country. Number 3, cordage. The old ones could have stopped at food and fire. They did not, and this is why. Cordage is the invisible thing holding the whole world together, and modern people never think about it once because it comes on a spool for $4. Without cordage, you have no bow, no net, no snowshoe, no lashing, no pack strap, no shelter tied down, no shoes that stay on your feet. You're not making anything, and it grows in the ditch. 2 plants will get most of America through: dogbane, which some folks call Indian hemp, and common milkweed. Basswood inner bark works up north, stinging nettle works, and yucca leaves work out west. Here's what you are looking for, and you want them dead. Go in late fall or in winter, after everything has died back and dried, standing up. Dogbane stands there as a slim, reddish-brown stalk about waist high, and it stays standing all winter. When you bend it, the outside comes away in long, silky ribbons. Now hear me on this one. Dogbane is fiber. It is not food. It is poisonous to eat. And I am telling you that plainly so nobody gets clever with it. The process, 1 step at a time. Snap the stalk off at the ground. Roll it under your boot or crush it flat in your hands until it splits open along its length. Peel the woody core out in pieces and drop them and keep the outer skin. Now buff that skin between your palms until the little bits of chaff fall out and you are left with a hank of long, soft, cream-colored fiber. Then you reverse wrap it. Split your bundle into 2 halves. Twist 1 half away from you until it wants to kink. Then bring it over the top of the other half toward you. Then twist the new bottom one away from you and bring it over as well. Away from you, then over the top. That is the whole motion, and once your hands learn it, you will do it without looking. A 2-ply dogbane cord, about the thickness of a bootlace, will hold a grown man's weight. I have hung a deer with it. That is a weed out of a ditch that nobody stops for. And I keep telling you the 10th one is the reason people could walk away from a camp in October and eat well in February. We will get there. Number 4, soap out of the ground. This is the least exciting item on this list, and it might be the most important, so stay with me. After a real storm, the thing that fills up hospitals is not starvation and it is not cold. It is sickness passing from hands to mouth because the water is off and nobody can wash anything properly. Clean hands have saved more lives in this country than any medicine ever invented. And there are plants that lather. Out west and on the southern plains, it is yucca. You dig up a piece of the root, peel the brown skin off it, and pound or shred the white inside. Swish that in a bowl of water, and it will foam up like store soap. It cleans hands, it cleans a pot, and it has been the shampoo of the Southwest for a very long time. In the eastern half of the country, look for soapwort along old roadsides and fence rows, which the old farm women called bouncing bet. Crush the leaves and roots in water and it does the same thing. What is doing the work is a natural compound called saponin, and it is soap in the true chemical sense. It grabs onto grease on one end and water on the other, and that is the entire secret of every soap ever made. 2 cautions: keep it out of your eyes, because saponins sting badly and you will not enjoy learning that. And do not do your washing in a still pond that has fish in it, because saponins are hard on fish. Wash in a bowl, up on the bank, and pour it out on the ground where it will do no harm. Number 5, the 4 plants that follow people. Wherever human beings break ground, 4 plants come and live with us. They are in your garden, in the crack in your driveway, in the ditch, and along the edge of every parking lot in America. And all 4 are food. Dandelion. Everybody knows the flower. Young leaves before it blooms are the good ones, and the old ones after blooming are bitter enough that you will want to boil them and pour the first water off. Broadleaf plantain. This is the low, flat rosette in your yard with the oval leaves that have strong parallel ribs running the length of them, like ropes under the skin. Young leaves are food, and the crushed leaf pressed on a bee sting or a scrape is the oldest first aid in every farmhouse in America, lamb's quarters, stands up tall, arrowhead-shaped leaves, and the newest growth at the top has a dusty white bloom on it that rubs off on your thumb. Cook it exactly like spinach, and it beats spinach. Purslane, low, sprawling, thick, fat, rubbery little leaves, a reddish stem, and it loves hot, dry ground. Eat it raw. It is faintly sour and pleasant, and it is one of the most nourishing green things growing in North America. Now let me tell you why I chose those 4 out of the hundreds I could have named. It is not because they are the tastiest. It is because not one of them has a dangerous look-alike worth losing sleep over. I would rather hand you 4 plants that cannot get you killed than 20 that can. 2 rules on gathering, and they both matter. Take a third and leave the rest, and never take the only one you can see, because a plant you wipe out is a plant that is not there next year. And never gather along a road shoulder, a right-of-way, a power line cut, or a treated lawn, because those places get sprayed and you will never know it by looking. Number 6, willow bark, and the finest story in this whole field. For a very long time, all across the northern half of this world, people chewed the bark of the willow for aches and for fevers. Our people had it here on this continent. It was not folklore and it was not hope. It worked, and everybody knew it worked. Then chemists went and looked inside that bark to find out why. They found a compound called salicin, and they pulled it out, and they worked on it, and what came out the other end is the bottle of aspirin sitting in your medicine cabinet right now. Think about that for a minute. The modern world did not replace the old remedy. It took the old remedy apart, found out the old ones had been right the entire time, and built an industry on top of it. That is not a conspiracy. That is a compliment, and it is the plainest proof I know that the old knowledge was real. Willows are easy. They grow with their feet in water, along creeks and ditches and pond edges. The leaves are long and narrow, several times longer than they are wide. And here is the woodsman's check that settles it. Take a young twig and tie it in a knot. A willow twig will tie in a knot without snapping. Almost nothing else will, the way my grandmother made it, one step at a time. Cut a few young twigs, thumb thickness or smaller. Scrape the thin green inner bark off them with a knife. A small handful is plenty. Put it in a pot with water and hold it at a low simmer for about 20 minutes. Strain it. Drink it warm. It is bitter, and there is no way around that. And here's where I need you to actually listen to me instead of just enjoying the story. This is the aspirin family. That means if you cannot take aspirin, you cannot take this either. Never give it to a child or a teenager who has a fever, because aspirin and fevers in young people can cause a serious problem. And this is the same compound. If you're on a blood thinner or on anything for your stomach or on much of anything at all, have a word with your doctor before you add something new. That is not me being timid. That is me being a decent teacher. And take the bark from young twigs you cut. Never strip a ring of bark around the trunk of a living tree, because that ring kills the whole tree. Take what you need and let it live. Number 7, yarrow. And this is where it stops being a hobby. Yarrow is the plant every army in history carried, and our people used it the same way. Crushed fresh leaves, pressed down onto a small cut and held there. Help that cut stop bleeding and settle down. My grandmother kept a bundle of it dried and hanging by the back door, and I have got one hanging in my kitchen right now. Here is the honest limit on it up front. Small cuts, a scrape, a nick, a shaving cut, a torn thumb, anything deep, anything that is spurting, or anything that will not quit under firm, steady pressure is not a plant problem. That is direct pressure and a hospital, and no plant on this earth changes that fact. Now, the identification, and this is the most important paragraph in this entire video, so let me slow all the way down. Yarrow has leaves that are feathery, finely divided, soft, almost like a fern, and they run all the way up the stem. The flowers sit in a flat-top cluster of many tiny white flowers, like a little white tabletop. Crush a leaf between your fingers and it smells strong and sweet and green. But there are two other plants with flat-top clusters of tiny white flowers, and they will kill you. Poison hemlock and water hemlock. Not make you sick, kill you. So here's how you tell, and it comes down to the stem and the leaf. Poison hemlock has a stem that is smooth, hairless, and hollow, and it carries purple blotches and streaks on it, most of the time down low. Its leaves are broader and flatter, more like a carrot top or parsley, not fine and feathery, and crush it, and it smells musty and unpleasant, not sweet. Yarrow's stem is solid, often a little hairy, and it has no purple blotching on it anywhere. And yarrow's leaf is finer than anything either hemlock makes. So, the rule I was given, and the rule I give you. If the stem has purple on it, walk away. If the stem is hollow, walk away. If you have any doubt at all in your mind, walk away and go home and look at it again with somebody who knows. Nothing on this list is worth your life, and a real teacher tells you that instead of pretending it is easy, which brings us close to the end, and to number 10, and I have not forgotten. Number 8, boiling water without a pot. If you had no metal, you had a real problem. You could make a basket, a bark box, a hide bag, a hollowed log, or a hole in the ground lined with a green hide, and every one of those will hold water beautifully. But you cannot set a single one of them over a fire. So our people did not take the water to the fire. They took the fire to the water. You fill your container, you put rocks in the fire, and leave them there until they are hot all the way through, not just hot on the outside. And that takes a good while, longer than you think. Then you lift a rock out with a pair of green sticks, used like tongs, and drop it in the water. The water jumps and hisses and steams. When that rock quits working, you fish it out and put in a fresh hot one, and you keep a few in rotation. Fist-sized rocks, 4 or 5 of them going. A hide bag of water will come up to a real boil in about 10 minutes, and once it is there, it stays there easily. And now the part that matters more than the technique. Never ever use rocks out of a creek bed, and never use soft porous stone like sandstone or shale. Here is why. Porous rock that has been sitting in water has water down inside it, in every little pore. You put it in a fire. The trapped water turns to steam, and that steam has nowhere on this earth to go. So the rock bursts, and it does not crumble politely. It throws pieces across a camp like shrapnel out of a fire at speed. Use dry, dense rock gathered from high ground well away from any water. Test one in the fire first while you stand off to the side, and keep your face out of the line of that fire, always. That is how soup got made on this continent, before there was a clay pot in the camp. And honestly, meat cooked that way in a hide with hot stones is some of the best I have ever eaten. Number 9, drying, which is the only kind of food preservation that needs absolutely nothing. Think about every way you know to keep food. Canning needs jars and lids and a stove. Freezing needs power. Salting needs salt, and salt was worth a fortune for most of human history. Drying needs sun, moving air, and patience, and that is the entire list. For meat, here is the method. Cut it with the grain into long strips. Make them no thicker than your little finger, and make them even, because a thick spot will spoil while the thin part is done. Hang those strips on a rack of poles, up off the ground, out in moving air and sun. If flies are bad, build a small smoky fire underneath, low and cool, because the smoke keeps them off and speeds the drying at the same time. Now the only test that matters, and this is the number I want you to remember out of this whole section. It is done when it snaps, not when it bends. Snaps like a dry twig. If it bends, there's still water in it, and water is the thing that ruins it. Fruit goes on that same rack sliced thin. Squash and pumpkin. The old way is beautiful, and you peel the whole thing in one long spiral ribbon and hang the ribbon like a rope over a pole until it is leather. It will keep all winter, and it goes straight into a pot with a little water and comes back to life. And nuts keep themselves if you leave them in the shell somewhere cool and dry. Hickory, walnut, pecan, that is where canucci comes from, our hickory nut soup, which my grandmother made every fall of her life and which I still make every fall of mine. Now, Remember that SNAP test, because it is about to turn out to be half the answer to the thing I promised you at the very start. Number 10, the food that keeps for years. It is called pemmican, and I want to describe it before I explain it, because the explanation is the part worth waiting for. You take meat that has been dried until it snaps, and you pound it on a stone until it is a coarse powder, almost like sawdust. You render fat down until it is clear liquid. You mix them together, roughly equal weight of each, sometimes with dried berries pounded in. Then you pack it tight into a rawhide bag and seal the seam with more fat, and you set it aside, and it keeps, not for a week, not for a season, for years. There are accounts of it being opened decades later and still being good. Our people on the plains made it by the hundreds of pounds every fall, and it was traded up and down this continent like money. The fur companies bought it by the ton because it was the only food on earth that could cross a continent in a canoe and still be worth eating at the other end. So, when the title of this video says worth gold, understand that is not a figure of speech. This actually was currency. Now here's the question nobody asks, and it is the whole reason I told you to stay. Fat is the thing that goes bad. Butter goes rancid. Bacon goes rancid. Cooking oil in your cabinet goes rancid. Fat is the first thing to turn in any kitchen in America. So how in the world does adding fat to meat make that meat keep for years? Here's the answer. And once you have it, half of what the old ones did stops looking like magic. There are only two things on this earth that spoil food: moisture and air. That is the whole list. The first one is moisture, because everything that rots your food is alive. Bacteria are alive. Mold is alive, and every living thing needs water. Take the water out completely, and there is nothing left for anything to live in. Not less water. Out. That is exactly what the drying does, and that is why the SNAP test in number 9 is the single most important test on this whole list. Meat that bends still has water in it, and meat with water in it will spoil no matter what you pour over it. The second one is air. Oxygen is what turns fat rancid, and open air is how mold gets a foothold, and this is where the fat comes in, because folks have the fat's job exactly backward. The fat is not the food. The fat is the jar. You pour it on warm and liquid over a powder, and it runs into every gap and around every single particle, and then it sets up hard. Now there is no air touching that meat anywhere in the bag. None. You have sealed every crumb of it individually in a container you can eat. Dry kills the first enemy. Fat kills the second one. One recipe, both enemies. No ice, no jar, no salt, no can, and no power. That is not a survival trick. That is engineering. And our people worked it out a very long time before anybody had a word for any of it. A few rules if you make it, one at a time. The meat must snap. Render your fat until it stops bubbling, because bubbling means there is still water cooking out of it. And strain out the little brown bits, because those bits are the part that goes bad. Roughly equal weight meat powder and fat. Equal weight. Pack it tight so there are no air pockets left in the bag. Keep it cool and dark, because heat and light will still work on fat slowly over the years. And trust your nose. If it ever smells like old paint or crayons, the fat has turned, and you throw it out, and you do not argue with yourself about it. If you want to make it in a modern kitchen, and I do every fall, it works exactly the same. Dry your meat in the oven on the lowest setting with the door cracked open until it snaps. Run it through a grinder or put it in a bag and go at it with a rolling pin. Render your fat slow in a heavy pot over low heat, and you want beef suet or tallow, not bacon grease, because bacon grease carries water and salt and smoke in it, and it will not keep. Pour the fat warm over the powder. Work it together with your hands. Press it into a jar or a loaf pan and let it set up somewhere cool. Dried cranberries or blueberries pounded in are traditional, and they make the whole thing a good deal easier to eat. That is the kind of thing my grandmother handed me for free, and there are 101 of them in the book, written out plain, so they do not die with me. The Native American way, $17, marked down from $47. 17. That is one restaurant meal for skills that carried a whole people through 10,000 winters. And the whole reason I wrote it down is that nobody ever did. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you used to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up. Give it a tap and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. So there are your 10. Seep the water and then boil it anyway. Bank your coals under ash. Twist cordage out of a ditch weed. Wash with a root. Eat the 4 plants that follow people. Know your willow and know your yarrow and know what is standing next to your yarrow. Boil with stones from high ground. Dry it until it snaps and seal it under fat. Now tell me something in the comments. How many of these 10 did you already know how to do? Just give me the number. 1 through 10, I want to see them. And if one of them came down to you from your own grandmother or grandfather, from any tradition anywhere, tell me that story too, because that is exactly the kind of knowledge that dies when nobody asks for it. I read every single one. Next time I am going to show you how our people got a winter's worth of oil out of hickory nuts. No press, no machine, no equipment at all. Just a pot of water, a rock, and gravity, and 1 jar of that oil will change everything that comes out of your kitchen. Ada used to say that a person who knows how to do things is never really poor. She was standing at the stove when she said it, and she did not look up. And I did not understand her for about 30 years. Wado, my friends. That means thank you. Walk easy, and I'll see you down the trail.